Hey guys, so today I am giving you a garden tour for the beginning of August, and the garden is looking great even though we've had some very hot days and we've also gotten very little rain. So let me just show you around and some of the things that are blooming in this garden bed. So the main things that are blooming here are the echinacea, which are starting to come to the end. I might deadhead a few just so that I can get some more blooms. But as you can see here, the Millennium Alliums are the ones that are starting to burst into bloom. There are tons and tons of bees on the Millennium Alliums. The bees just absolutely love those alliums. And my white agastache is still blooming very nicely. And the one thing that I have trimmed back is the eryngium or sea holly, because those were done blooming. And this is my first year growing them, so I am unsure as to whether or not they will rebloom, perhaps maybe more in the fall. So that is a wait and see. With the coneflowers, I've noticed that the purple coneflower is the one that the swallowtails really love. And they have been on this plant so much. And I was considering getting rid of the some of these, but now I'm thinking I actually want to have more of them, or just moving them and putting them more into a cluster somewhere, but I am going to keep them. Now my yarrow has finally bloomed. It's taken so long with taking so much damage from the rabbits, and my husband was the one that was really coming out and doing a lot of deer spray and trying to keep up with it very often, and that seemed to work. And also someone in the comments had suggested that I do double strength, and that's what we've moved to, is double the strength of the deer and rabbit spray, and that seems to have worked really well with this yarrow. And finally I am getting these blooms. These are like a reddish color, but then they form into more of a pink, magenta, and then into this soft pink. Absolutely beautiful. Love this flower. The Veronica, this is the second flush of blooms. I had cut it back right after my last garden tour, and it's already bloomed back. Love this plant. I actually would like to add a few more in this garden because so far these are not bothered by the rabbits. I have another Veronica that is a pink Veronica. I think it's Red Fox. And that one constantly is being eaten by the rabbits. So just not sure if it's just the variety and the type, but this particular one is left alone. The other beautiful thing that's blooming in this garden bed is the black-eyed Susans. Last year I was having so much trouble with it because between probably mostly the rabbits were eating it. I think the deer may have browsed on it, but it was really the rabbits. And now it is blooming and looking so stupendous. I really love that pop of yellow in this garden. Just really adds that nice extra color in here, other than all the pinks and purples, and just breaks that up. So I think I would want to add like one or two of them, more of them in here, and yeah, and just add a little bit more of that yellow in here. And the bee balm is really on its last leg of blooming, so I do have to cut a lot of that back. Really kind of my first full year of bee balm, so I'm unsure as to whether or not that's going to rebloom, but I am going to probably cut that back pretty hard, and about half, if not a little bit more. The Rudbeckia Cherry Brandy is looking kind of tired, and I do think that I really should cut this back. And I think we might still get some blooms if I do cut it back and, you know, let it come back. I think it'll come back in the fall. Over here by my cut flower section, the crepe myrtles have been blooming and looking so beautiful this year. This particular one is just covered in bees in the morning. It is buzzing so loud you would think you were at a beehive. It is pretty crazy how many bees are in the morning on this plant. So a lot of this I need to cut back, a lot of spent blooms. I haven't been cutting as much to bring inside. It's just been so hot and I've been so busy that, you know, it's just sort of been here, and I've cut a few, but nothing like a large bouquet or anything. I think there are a few things I will change next year, but that's for another video. Over here is the Scabiosa Black Knight. A lot of spent blooms here. Going to seed, and I do plan on cutting a lot of this back and making sure that it continues to put out blooms. The larkspur, I had cut it all the way back, all of these, and they're all reblooming. They are pretty short though, and I don't know if that's how it's supposed to be. The first flush of blooms was super tall and beautiful, and you know, I did cut it back about half the size, and yeah, not sure if that's, I shouldn't have done that, but regardless, it's reblooming and looking beautiful, and probably have to come back in here and cut back some of those spent blooms. Now, the one that's going gangbuster is really the straw flower. I mean, this is insane how many flowers a few of the plants can put out. I do have also just, you know, spread around a few other ones and dotted them in the bed here and there. But this is my biggest patch. And I am going to come back and cut this right in half and then let them rebloom from there. These usually go well into the frost, so it will take a light frost and it will just keep on going. So it is one of my flowers that just does really, really well through a lot of different weather. The Statice has rebloomed for some of them. I did cut back sort of in the center a lot, and I'm seeing a little bit of growth in there, but not a whole lot. So I do have to do a little research on that and see whether or not they come back from cutting them back and they rebloom, because I'm thinking they're not doing so well. And I'm seeing some other things growing in there, and I don't know if they're weeds or something else that I may have planted. Don't know. The feverfew are looking fantastic. I actually cut this back pretty hard, and they're starting to put back out some blooms, which is really nice to see, because I thought I was going to have to pull these out, but clearly they just keep on blooming. And I actually do like that kind of flower. I want a little bit of no fuss and you know, not having to plant something else later. And if you cut it, it'll just come back. Those are my types. Cut and come back again kind of thing. I didn't do any zinnias this year, and now I'm kind of wishing I did. So maybe for next year. Here, the Dara is looking kind of spent for some of the blooms, but if the leaves at the bottom just look like they're kind of done. I think, though, if I cut it back, which I had actually cut back quite a bit of this, it all sort of put out new blooms, and yeah, but I have to do it again. There's a lot of spent blooms in here, like these that are curling up. These are done, and I just need to cut a lot of this out. So my dahlias are not exactly the best this year, or at least not at the moment. The two in the back are ones that I bought this year, and I'll put up the name because I don't remember the variety. There's one in the center that has stayed a little short, and that one is either Bluebird, Bluebell. I'll throw it up also. That one I saved over the winter in my basement, and that one is doing really, really well. This is my Penn Hill watermelon one, and some of the buds had been eaten by the deer, but now it's getting some new buds on it. And yeah, we'll see it flower, although the bottom of the leaves aren't looking so great. They are starting to come back a bit. I did give it some iron tone, and that seemed to have helped for a little bit, but I might have to add a little more. And then these are also, this was a cafe au lait, and then I had to pull that out because it was doing absolutely nothing. And I ended up popping in some other ones that I had saved over the winter, and I do not know which variety they were because they got all mixed up. But they've stayed pretty stunted, and not sure if I'm going to get much out of that one. And then the second cafe au lait that I bought at Walmart, I just think that bag wasn't very good, and this one is also pretty stunted. I put this particular one in the ground, I mean, it has to be over a month ago, and all these other ones, as you can see, are super tall, and I put them all in at the same time. And yeah, something's up with this one, but I'm going to leave it in the ground for now. Here in this bed, a lot of things were spent. Yeah. This hot summer has really done everything in. This is a bed that eventually will be a little bit more shaded, and things should do a little better. But yeah, everything is super tired in this bed. This garden bed here just doesn't have a whole lot to talk about other than the great blue lobelia, which is now in bloom, and it looks very pretty. I love that nothing bothers this, at least so far. And I have a few others dotted in here, which should be in bloom later on. And a few more over here. So a little patch somehow grew over here. Maybe it's self-seeded. I don't care. It grows very nicely here and does well and isn't exactly bothered. So we shall leave that alone. But that brings me to the end of this garden tour, and just a quick one that I wanted to give you an update on. And hopefully by the next one, I'll have a little bit more, maybe temperatures will go down and things won't be suffering as much. So thanks for joining me, and don't forget to hit that like button, and I'll see you next time. Bye.